So Riley and I are very excited that y'all are here. My name is Beth Watts, and I'm the transfer advisor here in the Office of Transfer Services.
And I'm Riley Hutchison. I'm one of the assistant directors of admissions at Appalachian, and I apologize if there's any noise. I am traveling on the road and I'm currently in Panera, but I'm really excited to be with y'all and share some updates with y'all today.
Yeah, definitely. So Riley, thank you for joining us from Panera, and I know you've been on the road quite a bit lately, so thanks for being here and making it work.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, definitely. Well, again, thank you guys for being here with us. We wanted to just get out some updates for our early college high school counselors. We know that you guys are getting ready to start probably are in the depths of getting students, trying to help them get admitted and get applications in. So we just thought now would be a good time. So I'll turn it over to Riley. Because of the way we're sharing this, I kind of have to run the presentation. So if there seems to be a little bit of a gap, sometimes I'm just trying to catch up to her. So I'll go ahead and start you up, Riley.
Perfect. So once again, I'm Riley Hutchison. Each individual student has their own admission counselor at Appalachian, but I'm kind of the liaison in our office. If anyone ever has any really kind of complicated early college questions, I try to help with that. So I wanted to start off with, what is the definition of an early college student at Appalachian? So an Appalachian early college or middle college student is any student who has earned or will earn an Associate of Science or Arts degree upon graduating from earlier middle college or bringing in a substantial transferable credit. Early college and middle college students still will apply as first years, however, at Appalachian. So with those application deadlines, Beth, you want to click back one.
Did it go back too far? Okay, sorry.
That's okay. So with those first year deadlines, if you apply by November 1, your documents by November 15, you'll receive a decision by January 25th. You apply by February 1 with all materials by February 15, we'll let you know by March 15. But I always say to pretend like February 1 deadline doesn't even exist, because November 1 truly is the best time to apply. That's when we admit the majority of our students, and that's when a student has the best opportunity for admission. And like I said, early college and middle college students still apply as first years at Appalachian. So what's required for a complete application? So in order to have a complete application, we're going to need, of course, the online application from Common App, $65 application fee or fee waiver. We'll need official high school transcripts. We also will need official college transcripts. Even if your students, college work is listed on the early college transcript, we still need that college transcript as well. We also need SAT or ACT scores. We don't have a preference between the two, and we super score both tests. And students now have the ability to self-report their test scores, meaning they don't have to pay to send them to us right now if they don't want to. They can just go in and type their test scores, and if they decide later on that they do want to attend Appalachian and enroll, their test scores will then just become an enrollment step to verify those scores. We also have two optional pieces of the application. They're not required by any means, but they only help a student in the admission process, and that's the list of activities, kind of like a resume. Think of everything they're doing outside of their high school classes, and then that interest statement saying just honestly why they want to attend Appalachian. Now, with scholarships, things have changed a little bit this year. So if you have students that are interested in applying for scholarships, if they apply by November 1, they are automatically going to be considered for our Appalachian Excellence Scholarship. This is going to be one of the smaller scholarships. We're not quite sure of the amount yet, but it's not going to be a full ride. But just by applying early and doing those optional materials, they'll be considered. Now, if you have a student that wants to be considered for our Access Scholarship, it's a need-based scholarship for students in North Carolina. They'll submit their admission application by November 1 and the FAFSA by December 1. And if they want to be considered for some of our larger scholarship opportunities, the signature scholarships, then you have a supplemental scholarship application located on the student's My Mountaineer portal, which is the application management tool. That scholarship application is going to be 2 to 3 letters of rec and 3 to 6 short essays, depending on what programs the student is interested in. So if they're just looking at scholarships, you're looking at 3 essays for scholarships, plus 1 for the Honors College. Our Chancellor Scholars Program is a full ride for all 4 years and has automatic consideration for being in the Honors College. So you have to have that honors application for the Chancellor Scholars Program. But if you're interested in just the other scholarships, you're just looking at 3. We have our Diversity Scholars Program for students interested in any area of diversity. We have our, of course, Chancellor Scholars Program. We have other merit-based scholarships. We have some academic scholarships. We have some leadership scholarship opportunities. So just by submitting that one application by November 15th, will automatically consider a student for all of those other scholarship programs. And with those essays, they're more like chunky paragraphs than essays. So at maximum, a student can do 6, but realistically, most will do 4, probably when they're applying for scholarships. All right, now, the Early College Choice Act. So we get a lot of questions about this. The Early College Choice Act, the way that it works is if a student has indicated that they have earned or will earn an Associate of Science or Arts degree upon graduating from North Carolina Cooperative Innovative High School, they will be asked to choose how they want to be evaluated. This Early College Choice Act will show up as an optional form on their My Mountaineer portal. With this, students get to choose how they want their application to be considered, meaning refers to the evaluation of credits, not a student's type. Early college and middle college students will always be first-year students, but they get to choose how they would like their application to be reviewed. So due to enrollment federal regulations, they have to complete that first-year application and submit all of the first-year materials. But they get to pick how they would like that to be reviewed, which we'll touch on that next slide. So, okay, so with that, students have the ability to submit their college transcripts as a part of their application. So they get to pick how they would like to view. I think we're getting a little, okay, perfect. Getting a little feedback. So after admission, students with credit, they're going to be evaluated and given a class standing based on the number of transferable credits that they have. Regardless of which option a student selects, they're going to have the opportunity to attend a first year or transfer orientation. So with that selection, it's not going to change their student type. It's just going to change how their application is reviewed. So Beth, if you'll click to the next one. We encourage students to choose to be considered as a first year by selecting the option or not completing the form in most cases. We're committed to using the review process that best advantages each student, but if a student feels that their test scores and their high school grades are going to be a significant disadvantage to them, then absolutely have them choose the transfer option via the form. But the reason we suggest most students to select first year in that review process is the most information to look at when we're making an admission decision. In terms of how we review first year admissions, it's extremely holistic. So we're taking literally every piece of information into consideration when we're making that decision, not just their numbers on a piece of paper. But if a student chooses to be reviewed as a transfer, it just changes the way that we review them from reviewing like a first year to reviewing like a transfer, getting more focus on their college work rather than their high school transcripts and test scores. So the last one is, what would make an early college student a transfer? So sometimes we have students who are denied admission and want to then apply as a transfer student. Well, the only way that it would truly make a student a transfer is if they're taking courses after high school graduation. And these courses must be taken during a fall or a spring semester. Summers do not change an early college student's type. So if you have a student that graduates from their early college, has completed their associates, and is denied admission to Appalachian, wants to reapply as a transfer, they are going to have to take a full semester of classes and coursework either in the fall or the spring in order to flip their student type from first year to transfer. And in the admission process, we're going to give the student the best possible chance for admission. So we're going to really try to find reasons to admit the students when we're looking at them. But if they are denied, this is how they would change their student type from first year to a transfer, by taking classes in a fall or a spring semester after high school graduation.
Riley, in looking at that, would they, even though they would be considered a transfer student, what application would they have to submit? Would it be the first year or the Common App or the transfer application?
When it flips their type of student, Then they would apply via CFNC as a transfer student after they have taken courses after high school graduation in a fall or a spring. It completely flips their type to transfer, and they apply via CFNC.
Awesome. So at that point, would they still be required on-campus housing?
Yes. So they're in that situation of they are within 1 year of high school graduation, so they will still live on campus. That's a situation that we kind of call a green transfer, in the sense of they still are a transfer student, but they're still going to get housing on campus since they're within 1 year of high school graduation.
I think that's an area that's kind of gray for a lot of people, is that first year transfer. That kind of gray area kind of muddles things, I think, a bit.
Yeah, it is definitely kind of a confusing situation. But if you ever have students that are in this place, my best resource is just to say reach out to their admission counselor, ask advice, because we're always happy to work with students. Regardless of what their decision is, we want to be a resource and make sure that if they want to get to Appalachian, we can help them get there as quickly as possible.
Well, and I think this is a growing population, so I think we're going to see more and more early college students as we see our population continue to grow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. Does anybody have any questions for Riley before we switch over to advising? If not, if you don't want to ask right now, there'll be time at the end also to ask questions. So if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask some questions now, please feel free. All right, well, we'll keep moving on then. We know you guys have had a long day. We want to make this, expedite this for you. So we'll switch over to advising. So I just wanted to offer up a couple advising tools. As I mentioned earlier, I work in the Office of Transfer Services, and I am the transfer advisor. So I work with all prospective students regardless of whether they're first year or transfer. So I work with a lot of early college students with regard to what courses they need to take while they're completing their 2-year degree before they transfer. So I just wanted to give you guys a few tools that I find to be very helpful whenever I'm working with these students, because they do kind of come in, as we were saying, in that little bit of gray area. They're not exactly first years, but they're not exactly transfers either. So you can find all these tools on transfer.appstate.edu, and that is our Office of Transfer Services website. The first one I wanted to look at is the course equivalency search. And the course equivalency search is a great tool because it gives you the opportunity to see how a course is going to transfer to Appalachian. I think whenever you're working with a lot of different students who are looking at a lot of different institutions to transfer to or to attend, they all want to know how everything's going to transfer. And lucky for us, most of the UNC system schools have the course equivalency search. And so basically you're just looking at the term that they're going to be coming in, where they're coming from, and then of course the community college that they have been attending. We'll go with AB Tech. And so then that will populate for you everything that has previously transferred from AB Tech or from any of the community colleges. As you all know, there is a Common Course library whenever you look at the NC Community College system. And so pretty much if it's transferring from AB Tech, it's going to transfer from Caldwell Community College, but still a great resource if you have any questions about that. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is testing. Testing has moved to our website, transfer.appstate.edu, because our office deals with all the AP, CLEP, IB, and Cambridge credit. We do all the articulation of that credit, so we felt like it was a little bit more applicable here. One thing I did want to bring up is the new AP credit policy. You may or may not know that the UNC system went to scores of 3 or better. For all of the UNC system institutions. One of the things about that is there's no universal way on how that credit is coming to us. How we are accepting the credit is different than A&T is going to accept the credit. Another thing I would like to caution you about is just because a student gets a 3 does not mean they're going to get the same credit as if they got a 4 or a 5. If you look down here at English literature and composition, you see if a student got a 3, then they receive English 1500, which does count in our gen ed, but it does not count towards our first year writing requirement. They had to get the 4 or the 5 to get the writing requirement. We've got a few others that are like that, as you can see, for computer science, chemistry. If you scroll on down, there's a few more on the other side. As you can see, for Spanish, statistics, So the big thing here with the statistics is that one is 3 hours and one is 4 hours. So whenever students are taking AP credit, I think that's something that you need to be aware of. I know that I do have some early college students who take college credit and they also take AP credit because of the schools that they're going to be attending or they hope to attend. Chapel Hill tends to prefer AP credit over college credit, so I have seen students kind of doing a mixture of both. So I just wanted to make you guys aware of that. The other thing I wanted to go over are the transfer guides. As part of the Comprehensive Articulation Agreement of 2014, all UNC system institutions had to create transfer guides. I do these every summer, so I'm pretty familiar with them, but I wanted to stress the importance of utilizing these as students are selecting courses. One thing that we were seeing with our community college, or our students coming from the early college and community colleges, is that they're not necessarily taking the courses that they need for prerequisite purposes going into their major, and so that is actually causing them to be here longer because they're not taking the correct classes. And so, as you know, that's going to extend their time to graduation and also add more money from their pocketbook. Keep in mind the transfer guides are an example of how something should be done, and there is no way that completing a transfer guide guarantees admission to the university. We have actually had students that have come to us and asked that before. Well, I completed this based on your transfer guide. Does that mean I'm admitted? No, that does not mean you're admitted. You still have to go through that process. Another thing to keep in mind is not all bachelor programs can be completed in 2 years after completion of a transfer degree or an AA or AS degree. That's really important because we do have a lot of students that are still coming to us thinking that everything's going to be a pretty 2+2. And granted, I know that y'all were probably hearing that from the state level, but once we get here to the university level, that is not happening. We have quite a few programs that would prefer that students not complete a transfer degree just because it's causing them to take classes that they did not need. And we're going to look at a few of those in just a second. Another thing to note is that some programs request a summer start term, and this is so students aren't behind. And so that goes back to whenever you're filling out the application and indicating what term of entry the student intends to come in. So if a student is going to be a comm major, they really need to start in the summer so they can take our Comm 1200, which is pretty much the prerequisite to everything else. If the student comes in with all their general education met, then we're really limited on what we can put them into that first semester within that major. Some programs do require an Appalachian GPA be established. Our College of Business, Education, now the Comm department does require a 2.5 to be fully admitted into that department. And so those are things that we really need students to be aware of. So when we're looking at these transfer guides, let me get over those. They are listed alphabetically by major. And let's see, let me find a good one to start with. Let's start with the building sciences one. Now all these have been archived, so you can go back and look at them if you need to. Now I know that this can be a little bit small, and I apologize for that. We wanted to get these all onto one page so students weren't losing pages. But as you can see, this is going to detail exactly what a student needs to take at the community college, part of their early college degree, before they get to Appalachian. Again, every UNC system institution has these. They don't all look the same, so that can make navigation a little bit difficult, but they all have them. So this details exactly what they need to take, what's been required, what's recommended. As you can see, for building sciences, they do recommend that students maybe have a foreign language under their belt, which might be very good if they're going into something like construction management. And then as you can see down here at the bottom, this is what it would look like for a student coming to us. As you can see, this is a summer start term, so that's what they are recommending. So whenever a student applies, they would then select the summer term as their term of entry. And then they can also plan how long it's going to take them to finish. Now, in looking at this, they get the 2-year degree. This is still going to be a pretty long major. As you can see, they'll have 2 full semesters to begin with, another 2, another summer, and then a final semester. So they really are looking at a 2.5-year degree. So even if they get the 2-year degree, it's still going to be 2.5 years for these students in this major. So something to consider whenever they're planning. Another major that we are having a lot of interest in is interior design. And that's another big one. that students are coming in and somewhat unprepared for. Now, this transfer guide states that it is strongly recommended that students complete 30 hours of UGETC coursework and then transfer. They must also apply for a summer term. So in looking at this transfer guide, as you can see, it's not very specific at all. There's not really any classes that a student can take at the community college that are going to transfer. There are some programs out there that our department, our interior design department, will work with, but those are few and far between. So in thinking about that, but think about the students who are coming to us. And then again, it also asks for the summer start term. And it's going to be a full summer start term. So they will be taking 2 classes each 5-week session, and then they will do their portfolio. Now, if they do not get into the major because their portfolio is not where it needs to be, then of course they will have to look at another major. So that's another discussion. But I did want to point out, it might be easier to see this if we back it up a little bit. The interior design major is extremely extensive. Even students who start here at Appalachian from day one are usually here probably close to 5 years. But as you can see, this is going to be at least a 3-year program over and above the 2-year associate's degree. So either way, they're looking at about 5 years plus the summer terms. So it tends to be very, very intensive and very hands-on for these students. And to be honest with you, it can be a little bit stressful. Another big one of our majors, one more that I wanted to point out, is nursing. We have quite a few students who want to go into nursing. And what I see with the early college students coming in is that these students are coming in and they have all their prerequisites and they're doing great. They've got all their general education met. They are doing fabulous. But the problem with this is they have all that coursework done and they're ready to start major courses, but the nursing department requires a separate application over and above the university application. Students must submit that application mid-January, and they do look at their transfer GPA. This is one of our only majors that looks at the transfer GPA for admission into that major, over and above what the university is looking at. And they do take into consideration all coursework that was taken while the student was, quote, in high school. Or our early college, high school. So for nursing majors, one thing that we're having to battle is, okay, if they come in, they get accepted for the fall, they've got all their prereqs done, they've got all their gen ed done, but then they can't even apply to the nursing department until January, and then there is no guarantee that they're going to get in for when classes start in the summer. So that is requiring students to possibly consider a parallel plan and go ahead and start working on that parallel plan before they even ever get a chance to apply for the nursing department. So sometimes that means that the student finds their path and they don't want to be a nurse anymore, and so they completely switch their major and it's not a big deal. Other students, if they get into the nursing program, then the coursework that they've done previously turns into a minor. Other students, if they don't get into the nursing program, some of them will leave Appalachian and go do the associate's degree in nursing at a community college and then come back to us for the RN to BSN. Others will just change their major completely so that they can continue at Appalachian. But again, that's personal preference. So if a student you do have a nursing student who would like to go ahead and come to Appalachian, that would be, we'll work with them through that. But if for some reason they can take a little bit of time off, and that way they're not taking classes that they may not necessarily need, especially if you've got a really, really strong student that has like a 4.0 plus, those students would probably be more applicable to get into the nursing program. I will say that nursing is very, very competitive as it is across the state, which I personally am glad for. I would prefer that our nurses be highly, highly trained and capable. And the average GPA that is admitted for the nursing program is about a 3.8. We have 45 students that are admitted each summer cohort out of about 125 to 150 applicants. So we're doing a whole lot of changing of majors, trying to find students other options. But I do see our early college students struggling with this a little bit more just because of the timing of everything and them understanding the timing of things. So I did want to point out a couple of those majors. There are other majors to consider, such as music. I know I said that nursing was the last one, but music will be the last one. Let me see, there is a chat. Let me look at that chat real quick. Okay. Rita, I'll get to you. We'll answer your question here in just a second, okay? The other one is music. Music, they want you to get here as quickly as possible. Granted, if a student gets a 2-year degree, they get the 2-year degree, but music is so individualized that we don't even have any coursework to put down here because it's going to be specific to the student and their instrument, whether that be voice or one that they play. So that's going to be very, very specific to them. All right, let's look here at Rita. How do students know a separate application is required for a certain degree? Should a student complete the application and if they do not have all the classes from the first 4 semesters of the guide? So if a separate application is required, it will be noted on the transfer guide. If you look, let's go back to the nursing one real quick. There is a section at the bottom of the notes that will indicate if a separate application is required. I know, again, that's hard to see. So let me get that to where everybody can see it. So down here at the bottom, we will state if a separate application is required. And so if a separate application is required, then we do realize that courses are going to be in progress. So courses can be in progress at the time of application, just like whenever they submit the university application, as long as by the time they are ready to start the coursework, all those other courses are complete. But that does mean if they have maybe a GPA that's a little bit lower and they're waiting on their other courses to come through to raise that GPA, it might kind of change their ability to get into the program. Does that help, Rita? Yes, okay, awesome, awesome. Thank you, that was a great question. I appreciate you asking that. Because it is a little bit, it is a little bit, we ride a kind of a fine line there with some of those degrees and programs. College of Business requires a 2.6 Appalachian GPA, but the thing about that is we do understand that we don't want students taking college classes that they don't necessarily need. So we will allow them to take up to 5 College of Business classes while they are establishing that Appalachian GPA of a 2.6. Same thing with the College of Ed. They have to have a 2.7, and so we do allow them to take college classes towards their major so that they're not wasting classes while they are establishing that GPA. Great question, thank you. Okay. All right, so in thinking about that, let's move on. I've got a bunch of little windows open here. And those are just a few of the advising tips that I wanted to provide you with, some tools that I use daily with the early college students. And then I kind of wanted to switch over to housing. As Riley was saying earlier, early college students are required to live on campus unless they come under the Choice Act, and then they're able to choose and whatnot. So the early college students do have options to live in a residential learning community. This Early College RLC. Basically, this helps with transition. It allows the early college students to live together in a community. I actually advise for this floor. It's in Belk Hall on the west side of campus over near Stadium. And we do various events and activities. We had a retreat. Tomorrow night we're having a munch and learn where we're feeding them pizza and learn about advising practices. We're going to go snow tubing in the winter. We'll do a trip to Grandfather in the fall. And we're just introducing them to other various departments across campus so that they feel a little bit more integrated. One thing that we're seeing with these early college students is they're a little bit more sheltered than those that have been in general population. And so trying to get them out on campus and get them really involved on campus has been a little bit more difficult than our traditional student. So the residential learning community is a great option for them. If they're maybe feeling a little bit apprehensive about living in a dorm, kind of unsure what's happening, the early college students in this residential learning community have had a lot of great success with forming that community and really creating those bonds. So I encourage your students to take a look at that. Once they submit their application, have received their admission, and have paid their $200 deposit, right, Riley? Then they can apply for housing, right? Okay, they have to pay the $200 deposit, and then the housing application will open up, correct?
Yes, we'll open up after May 1. So
Okay.
Students literally have all the way until May 1 to make their decision. There is no preference given to students who put their deposit down the day they're admitted versus students that wait until May 1. So they've got that full time. After May 1 is when all of those enrollment steps open up, like that housing application.
Awesome, exactly. So if a student is interested in the early college residential learning community, they'll have to submit the housing application, and then there will be a separate essay component that has to be done, just saying why they would be a good part of the RLC. So that's a great option for students. And the early college residential learning community is not the only RLC. There's about 30 different RLCs on campus. There's one for teacher educator. I can't think of all of them, Riley. There's so many different ones. There's one for athletes, ROTC.
With the different RLCs, sometimes they'll change, but some of them are major specific, some of them are topic specific. A quick Google search will turn up all of them. They have some for active living, some for health sciences, honors college, language and culture. Two really popular ones, you're looking at Living Green for students that are interested in sustainability, but then also the outdoor community. So we get a lot of students that come to Appalachian that are interested in outdoors. So that outdoor community RLC, everybody on the floor is going to be interested in some kind of outdoor thing, hiking, kayaking, skiing, snowboarding. Those students are going to want to participate in a lot of those activities on the weekends.
Right. And I think the RLCs are a great opportunity for students just to get involved in those different things and kind of explore, especially outside of their major.
Most definitely. And that's something that it adds an extra layer of community. So when a student comes in, they know that baseline, everybody on their floor is going to have at least one common interest when they're starting.
Yeah. Makes it a lot easier, I think, to find that common interest. Okay, and last but not least, these are Matthew's words of wisdom. This is Matthew Hypolite. He came from Mitchell Early College, and he is actually the RA on the Early College Residential Learning Community. So I had a meeting with him today, and I said, so Matthew, if you could tell these counselors 5 tips, what 5 tips would you tell them that they could tell their students? And he said the first and foremost is not all degrees can be completed in 2 years after attending App State. Know what the bachelor degrees require. So that was the big thing. He said they need to know that because he felt like he came in kind of blind. So he felt like that was a big portion of it. He said be prepared for increased rigor and responsibility. He said he felt like some of the students didn't really think about the fact that they were coming in with all their general education med and would be going right into their major. And he said he feels like sometimes that can be a little intimidating until the student really gets into that major and gets to know some people in there. So he said just to prepare the students for that increased rigor and responsibility. He said good time management skills are a must. We just did a time management presentation with the early college RLC because he felt like they were really struggling. So he said that's a big one. Of course, get involved with campus clubs and organizations. There's over 450 clubs and organizations here on campus. And so we really want students to get involved. At the beginning of each semester, there's a club expo so students can see what's happening. And then the last one that he really stresses, don't be afraid to ask for help. And I think this goes true for any student, especially a new student here on campus. You're in an environment that you haven't been in before. I mean, we've all attended college before and kind of know what that feels like. But I think reiterating to these students that it's okay to ask for help is a big one. So those were the top 5 things that Matthew felt like he wanted to portray to the early college students coming. He will be the RA for the early college RLC for the foreseeable few years. I think he had a full of 3 years here. His major is healthcare management and his minors in social work. So he had about 3 years here, and he spent his first year on the early college RLC, this year as the RA, next year as the RA, and then possibly as a graduate student. So really proud of Matthew and what he's been doing. So I was glad to have his words of wisdom. All right, so we'll open it up for questions. If you have any questions for Riley or I, feel free to chat them, feel free to unmute, know how we can help you. And of course, here's all of our contact information. Okay, Brianna, you raised your hand. Let's unmute you. Let's see if we can unmute you and let you. All right, Brianna,
okay.
You should be able to talk.
Okay, do you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
All right, I'm wondering, we have grade 13 at our middle college, and some of those students graduate mid-year, finishing in December. Would they be able to apply to start in the spring semester in January at App?
Yes, absolutely. With students that are applying or graduating early, most definitely they can apply as a student coming in the spring. With that, the deadlines are going to be a little bit different. We just encourage them to apply as early as possible so we can get them a decision back for spring. But definitely, we've got students coming in all 4 semesters at Appalachian, fall, spring, and both summer sessions. So if you've got a student interested in applying for spring, absolutely. That application process is going to be the same, just a little bit quicker, since we want to be able to get them a decision for the spring so they can make their plans. But with students coming in the spring, they're still going to have an orientation. They're still going to come in and live on campus. And, you know, it's not just 2 or 3 students coming in the spring. We have a lot of students that come in, you know, mid-year.
Okay, thank you.
Of course, it's a great question.
Definitely. What other questions can we answer for you? Well, if you don't have any questions for us right now, then feel free to email us. Riley is on the road a lot right now, but she's emails. We both are on the road a lot, actually. But feel free to reach out. We're happy to help in any way that we can. And send, you know, and if your students have questions, tell them to reach out to us also. We enjoy hearing from the students and seeing how we can help them.
Absolutely. I'm always more than happy to help. Even if I'm not a student-specific admission counselor, I'm happy to find their admission counselor or any questions that they may have.
Definitely. All right. Well, we've recorded this, and so we will be posting this on our website and sending this out. So if you have anyone that didn't get to attend, please feel free to share this with them. We want to get as much information out as we can to our various high schools and early colleges, just to make sure that our students are prepared. So thank you for being here.
Thank you all so much. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.